Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Nikita McCauley, and I have the privilege of being joined by the artist Diana Thader today to discuss her use of film gel transfers on windows in her installations. Before we get started, I want to start with a few thank yous. So first and foremost, thank you, Diana, for being here today. I'd also like to thank Brian Butler for his mentorship and support in leading today's conversation, as well as all viewers who've come to see Diana's current show, The Conversation, that's been on view here for the last few weeks. Today's conversation is taking place on the unveiling of Diana's new window installation at the Los Angeles International Airport in the Tom Bradley International Terminal. The application of film gel transfers to windows has been a signature of Diana's innovative 360-degree window installations ever since she pioneered the technique in her seminal works, O Fifi, 5 Days in Claude Monet's Garden, Parts 1 and 2, which were first exhibited in the group show Into the Lapse at 1301 Santa Monica, and then part 2 at Very, the group show at Shoshana Wayne Gallery, also in 1992. And then soon after, Abyss of Light, which was Diana's first solo exhibition with 1301 in 1993. Today, I've asked Diana to reflect on the evolution of her windows from these early exhibitions on through her most recent installations, such as our current show, The Conversation, and her new window at LAX. So, Diana, how did you first arrive at the decision to apply tints or filters to the windows in your installations?
When I was in graduate school, I was really interested in working in film and video installations. So I went to see a lot, as much as I could, because there wasn't that much, in 1988, there was very little video installation. So you had to make an effort to see it. But every time I saw it, it was always in the video gallery, which was a blacked out room, a windowless room, a black box, a basement. So the video gallery was this kind of afterthought. And, most likely, if they could, they just put it in the basement. So what I wanted, I hated that because I don't like that kind of theatricality, a really dark room with projections. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I determined at a certain point that I wanted my work to be seen in the light, and that it could be in a room with windows or skylights or glass doors, or it could be in a room even maybe with other works of art so that it could withstand light. So I had to figure out a way to stop down daylight because I originally only worked with natural light. So I would work with windows, skylights, as I said. So I would only work with natural light. So I started tinting the windows using film gels like Lee filters, which are used in the film industry to stop down light. You put them over lights, basically. And they come in 4 levels of gray. Anyway, so that was the first thing I did, was to use those to stop down the light and have visible windows. So that's the first thing.
Right, that was with O Fifi Part 1.
Fifi Part 1 at 1301 in Santa Monica, right. That was, I think, the first time I used neutral density gray filters over the windows.
And that piece, right, is interesting. You've broken apart the projector physically, the Barcoa projector, so that you have the RGB, I guess, disaligned. Is that the way to say it?
Yeah, the red, green, and blue channels are misaligned so that you see red, green, blue, a red image, a green image, a blue image. And then where they blend, you see all the other possible colors.
Right, and then allowing light into that creates a more immersive experience instead of a womb-like cinematic experience for the viewer.
Yeah, I wanted the viewer to be able to see themselves in a work of art and to be part of it. So the minute you walk into the room, you're in the installation. I mean, that's what makes it installation. It's spatialized. So the minute you walk in, you're in it, you're part of it. If you saw a video projection in a basement somewhere, you're not in it. It's a theatrical experience. You're standing away from it, looking at it. And I didn't want people to look at my work. I wanted them to look with it and through it, you know.
So then quickly in the next show with part 2, you introduced the colored windows. And so then what was behind that decision to bring color into that? Instead of just stopping down light, now you were adding color as a material.
Right. Well, at 1301, when I did Ofifi Part 1, I took one image and I color separated it and I put it back together as one image and I projected it with one projector. At Shoshana Wayne, when I made Ofifi Part 2, which was shown simultaneously with Ofifi Part 1 at Bryan's, when I made Ofifi Part 2, I used 3 video projectors, one playing the red, one playing the blue, one playing the green channel, using the same video that was at 1301. It's the same exact video of Claude Monet's garden, but now I put the image back together. So there was this idea, if you went to 1301, you would see the image deconstructed. And if you went to Shoshana Wayne, you would see the image reconstructed. So because I used these 3 projectors, one projecting red, one projecting green, and one projecting blue, it occurred to me to tint the windows in those colors. Again, so the minute you walk in, you're in a show or you're in an artwork that's about light.
That's really interesting to me because, right, we all know that light scientifically is what creates color, or what makes color visible to us, to our eyes. But in that sense, you're also making space visible, almost like an object, right? This thing that surrounds us that we sort of, it's almost like fish in water.
Right.
You can be passive to it. It just is around you. And then by introducing color, it becomes both an object and volume, and it invites you to be more conscious of your body.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to use color for, was to, in an interesting way, try to make the volume of space visible, so that when you walked into a room, if I tinted the room, if I tinted all the windows orange and you walked into an orange room, you could feel the space. Color has like resonance and tonality and all kinds of things that make it heighten our experience. So it heightens your experience of the space you're in.
Something that strikes me about that too is that your work is very critical, but it's also very aesthetically minded. And so color in that way then is creating a relationship where the criticality of the work is not above the aesthetic or the immersive experience either. And in that way, it's almost working together to create something that's a feeling, but it's not a feeling that's where the viewer is being emotionally transported somewhere else, or where they're asked to think in a way that's not, I don't know what the language is I'm searching for there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I
it's
think
interesting that seems to, like, the gist of that, or living with this exhibition too, the gist of that seems to happen through the windows. Like it disrupts something, or there's this pouring in of light that changes how you see the space, just enough to take you outside your mind a little bit and outside your typical vision, so that you can apprehend the content in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that the experience of a work of art should be both, you know, an experience of thought, of, you know, interest, of intrigue, but it should also be an experience that is aesthetic. And I pay a lot of attention to the aesthetics of my work, even when the content is dark. The aesthetics are still there because you need to bring people in with something, you know, you need to draw people in. And you can, and I think you can't really draw people in with like horror in the way that I have seen it. You have to use other methods that art allows us to use. And one of those is an appeal to the aesthetic. And that's an appeal to the senses, and that's an appeal to feeling. It gives you a feeling. So the idea is that you have an intellectual experience, but you simultaneously feel something, the force of the work, I hope.
Absolutely. I mean, I certainly have in this current exhibition. In fact, I think it's the light almost more than anything, the way that it comes in through the windows, that grounds my body in the work. I mean, I think you also have a unique experience when you're a gallery worker, in that you are with the same piece over and over again in a daily way for weeks, which is unique in the viewing experience. You know, the artist has the experience of creating it in the studio and in installation, right? Work is not really fully created until it's installed.
Right.
Somewhere.
Right.
And then the viewer has the experience of coming to see the work. But I've noticed that my day is sort of paced to the changing reflections cast from the windows, especially when near my desk. And it's changed now that the season has changed. In September, it got this curving reflection that would almost wrap around my desk. And now it illuminates this, I have these little slatted wood that's there, and that becomes more intense, and I don't really get the wraparound reflection. But it has completely like changed the way that my work happens by noticing that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that people are attuned to light as much as they could be or should be. And the changing of light, it's not hard to make something beautiful using natural light, especially someplace like Los Angeles, for example. And the window film, the window treatments, the important thing is that they are key to the work. So the fact that you feel them, you feel that change in light happening around you. You also hear the change in sound, and you see the flickering of the video maybe. So
yeah, it's almost like a new apparatus, or it makes you aware of the apparatus that is always around you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the whole thing is an apparatus. There's all the machines, there's the images, there's meaning, there's you, and then there's your context, you know.
In those early works, they were mostly projection-based works, and you had then the involvement of the architecture through the filters on the windows. But then at a certain point, sort of in, I think starting in the early 2000s, you start applying filters to artificial lights inside the space as well. And then that fully eliminates the border of anything that's projected in the space. Can you talk a little bit about that decision to start using artificial artificial light as well as natural light?
Sure. It's hard to explain, but like the first 10 years of, you know, that I was working, you know, professionally from 1990 to 2000, I explored window film in my work, and it was neutral density, or it was red, green, and blue, or it was cyan, magenta, and yellow, which are the secondary video colors. Red, green, and blue are the primaries. Or it was the full set of color bars. And I also spent the same amount of time, I think, examining my medium from within boundaries, strict boundaries that I had created. For example, I only ever work with natural light. You know, I only ever did this, or I only ever worked on location. You know, I worked in a documentary style. So I had certain boundaries that I created so that I could understand what I was doing and I could learn to do it really well. So by 1999, I had gotten to a certain point with the work where I felt like I could open it up again. So I had explored these boundaries and now I was going to widen them. And I was going to include not only video colors, but I was going to include any color I wanted. And I was going to do it not only with natural light, but also with theatrically tinted lights. And I did that in two places. And the first place I did it was at the Vienna Secession when I showed Delphine for the first time. And that piece, and there are no windows in the Vienna Secession. So I made the installation and then I used artificial lighting to round out, fill out the space. So then I realized with artificial lighting that I could actually really direct it.
Right.
So I did that. So what I did was I brought this kind of magenta pink in to balance out this green blue, because Delphine is an underwater piece that was filmed with dolphins in the Caribbean. And it was at that point also that I decided I wouldn't work with captive animals, that I would only work with free animals. So I had this idea that this work was really about freedom. It was about freedom from my boundaries and a widening of those sort of vast widening of those boundaries. And it was also about this question of freedom in and of itself. So I gave myself the freedom to work with any color I wanted and to work with theatrical lighting and natural lighting. And then the next step was at DIA in New York when I did my show in 2001 and 2002. And there I used the neutral density gray, but I made the video projections. They were not rectangular, they were hexagonal. And I set them in a black rectangular frame so that the light coming in from the windows would wipe out the rectangle, everything that was black. So the image appeared to be made up of hexagons as opposed to rectangles.
That was knots and surfaces, correct? Which is all about bees, and bees see through a hexagon and not through rectangles. So
yeah, their whole lives are laid out hexagonally. So there is no, so I wanted to shape the work the way they shape everything. Their hives, their eyes are, millions of octagonal little lenses. So yeah, there was something I was trying to get at by wiping out that rectangular frame.
So the filters and well, by extension, light really is both. It's both content, material, and also a tool in your work, because that's a very formal application of trying to eliminate something.
Right.
Is, a barrier of the medium, right? A projector can only project. You can make the image whatever it is, but the projector can only project one way. But by messing with the light, you then remove that boundary.
Right. You have the ability to shape a projection using overshadowing parts of it with light, or hitting parts of it with light. So I think your point is a good one. Light originally, or color color originally came into my work as a kind of didactic. Like video is made of red, green, and blue. Therefore, I tint the windows red, green, and blue. It's very didactic, but I was teaching myself something, as I said. So I use this window film in a very clear way. But when it got to Delphine and then to Dia, I realized that light was not only this discursive material in the work, and color was not only volumetric and tonal and had, but it was a tool that I could use to transform video itself, because video was light and I'm working with light. So I'm working now with all light.
And also really hone that relationship that you're so interested in, which is the human and the natural existing together in an installation, in a space, but not having one, not in a hierarchical way, not having the human overtake the natural.
Right.
Or there being some sort of voyeuristic viewing of the animal or the natural. There's instead a relationship that's created.
Yeah, there's this idea of you conscious of yourself in your own space, looking at someone else. The idea, and that's the reason the equipment is out and visible, and the cabling is like, who cares? You know, it's not an impediment to experiencing this sort of transformative nature of an artwork. And I felt that light not only could transform in multiple ways, but it could also allow you, as I said, to be more conscious of yourself in the present tense. My work is not meant like a lot of video or narrative video that's meant to draw you away into the film, in a theatrical way. That's a theatric, that's theatrics.
So then I want to jump forward in time a little bit to when you start working with monitors in installations. And I'm actually curious when the first time you do this is, but I know in our gallery, it was with your 2016 show, Color Vision, where you introduce image to the windows. So that's a new evolution. And that show, and then our current show, The Conversation, they're both monitor-based installations. And now all of a sudden you have image on the window. So I'm kind of curious about that decision in the work as well, like what you were thinking through conceptually and maybe formally.
I think the first time I did it, I just thought it would be fun. I was like, I'm going to try this, and then I started doing it more. And I realized that I could manipulate natural light through the use of imagery and layering and textures. So I started working with images of the things I liked, flowers, and I did some private commissions of gardens and things like that. And then comes The Conversation, the show that we have up now. And those windows, I really wanted to sort of take a swipe at painting, because everything is painting now. And it's just, I find it really uninteresting, not just because I work in video, but, and I love, painting of a certain whatever kind. But it's just not daring, it's not innovative, and it's not interesting. So I decided I'd take a little swipe at it by making these very painterly windows.
They're even in the primary colors of painting, not the primary colors of video.
Exactly.
Red, yellow, and blue.
Right, they're red, yellow, and blue. And what they are is just close-ups of the wings of a scarlet macaw. I didn't make images. I took images and blew them up and, messed around with them. But yeah, it's important to me that it's red, blue, and yellow. It's the primaries of paint.
I was wondering if the decision between that was some sort of conversation with painting, also because the monitors are vertical and almost like portraiture. And if you're thinking of painting in a classical sense.
Right.
And in this show, they're sort of these they're not sort of, they are these portraits of birds. And what's interesting is in this show specifically is you've introduced sound for the second time in a solo exhibition. The first was earlier in 2020 with And Yes, There Will Be Singing. Did I get that title correct?
Yes, There Will Be Singing. Right, correct.
Now, which unfortunately was not open to the public because of the pandemic. And so now we have the conversation and you've added sound for the first time. Can you talk, because I know historically sound has not been included in your exhibitions. Maybe we're getting a little bit off topic here, but I'm curious about how you see this new direction of your work in relationship to something like your windows, which have been a mainstay since the beginning.
Well, it's a question, of wanting to make new things. And let's say I spent the first 10 years of my career like establishing a kind of language for myself, a language within which I wanted to work and a language that I wanted to use to speak to viewers. And then, sort of next 10 years, we look at this sort of evolution of color and shaped imagery. And then more recently, I've started working with sound. I mean, I had worked with sound when I did 3 collaborative projects with T. Kelly Mason.
Right.
Made Jump and Relay and The Future that almost wasn't. And all 3 were sound pieces, but I made the video elements and T. Kelly Mason made all the sound elements. So Yes, There Will Be Singing and the 2 pieces in the conversation, Talk to Us and Listen to Us, are all have major sound components. So what I'm teaching myself to do is to edit sound, but also to think through sound as an element in the work that is equally as complex as color and image.
And it's equally as spatial as well. I mean, I think that's the thing that is always present in your work, is there is always a nuanced or explicated relationship to filling the space or engaging with the space. And so now this is a new texture that's being added.
Exactly. And it helps, I mean, all my work, if you look at it, is about like architecture and shaping space and shaping time. And so this gives me another tool. So let's say from 2020 to 2030, I'll make sound works. And then in 2030, I'm gonna have to think up something new.
I think this is really great too. It just shows that part of being an artist is an active engagement with something and setting constraints for yourself so that you can master them and move forward. So there's this constant sort of searching or practicing or just engagement with material that happens.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be learned there, and there's a lot to be exposed there, and there's a lot to be utilized, and so every time you open a door, you get this whole host of choices, and you have to learn how to make meaning and create affect in and with that new material.
Mm-hmm.
which right now is sound for me. And I'm trying, I don't want to be the artist who doesn't know anything about sound, making bad sound installation. Like I would rather die than be that person. So I am learning and trying to think about sound in as complex a way as I think about video.
Well, I think that's a good stopping point. So thank you so much, Diana, for joining.
Okay, Nikita, thank you. And thanks for taking such good care of my show.